you ready for HEX Power Hour, baby? Oh, I love these. I love these shows. These are the shows where we get into the greatest token on earth, the HEX.com token. I like that HEX. You can stake it. You can not stake it. You can buy it. You can sell it. You can, it's probably community protocols that let you do all kinds of amazing things. You can wrap it. You can, all kinds of cool stuff. That HEX token. Hexicans, if you've been buckled up, it may be a few more seatbelts. You got to put on in order to make it in this ride, because the ups and downs have been very up and down. However, what hasn't been up and down has been the T-share rate. It's been up and to the right. And there's a man who's going to tell you, a couple men, pretty sure that identifies men. They're going to tell you all about it here in a moment. And one of them just needs to restart their computer. All right, we're gonna go with Crispy. Welcome back to the show, Crispy man. How's it going?
Well, how you doing, man? Hey, just for the record, I'm sorry, guys. I do identify male, so
identify as a Hexagon.
But $20 is $20. So I just want to say,
Lindberghs Unite. Oh, shout out to the trailer. That part never made it. That part never made it into the thing. But that was I almost called her Crispy Girl. Crypty Girl with the Lindberghs. That was a great segment they had on there. Colin, let me know when you're ready. I can't see unless we're going audio only, but let me know.
That's right. I remember, wasn't there a movie where somebody went Kong? Well, no, that was Kong. But
is there a King Kong movie? It's definitely one of those.
There's a couple of them.
Yeah.
It's like Mini Kong.
Mini Kong. I wonder. It makes me think of mini golf. I wonder if there's like these King Kong themed games that you can play that are not like at an arcade. It's got to be. If we looked it up, there's got to be like a King Kong themed amusement park or something, right? It's got to be a thing. Okay, Kong says he's ready. His camera's not working, so we can just. I know what he looks like. I saw him in the conference the other day. Welcome back to the show, Kong.
I think it's AI. This is AI, man. I don't believe it.
I think my AI agent made it to the call today, so the real Kong's busy, So
you identify as a gentleman or a Hexican?
That's right. Hey, NVIDIA's talking today about the crossover AI to real life. I don't know what the hell that means. What does that mean? Does that mean
it can mean a lot of things?
Like AI robot? I don't know. My stupid vacuum isn't smart enough not to try to vacuum poop. I'd like it to be smart enough to do that. It wasn't mine, by the way. It was the dog's, but nevertheless.
Yeah, you got the Roomba hit the poo.
and the warning that says take battery out before washing probably should be really important. It should be more available.
Did you just throw out the washing machine to let it work itself out?
Yeah.
That'd be tough. I heard you guys like the HEX token, by the way.
Oh yeah, man.
Yeah. Hey, that's one of my favorite ones, actually. So
yeah. Well, HEX is not PDI. I just want you to know. HEX.
Well, I'm mistaken, man. What?
Hey, there was at one point. I don't know how close it is right now. I didn't check, but the ratios were real close at one point and went way up. And some people took profits. Took profits into HEX, baby.
That HEX thing, yeah, seemed to be pretty good. Is there some big monetary policy change that there's some big whales that were staking billions and billions of HEX for any particular reason lately? Do you catch that?
I hadn't heard. Is there something new going on? Is there something new today?
That OA. That
OA. That OA. The OA has changed the rules yet again. So with all that staking, basically bringing APR down to like an extremely low level. Right.
That's the piece too. I think I saw a comment, and we're going to see plenty of comments from people who are upset over the price and stuff like that. But one comment I think is actually interesting to pull a thread on is, but HEX has no utility now. Like the staking narrative has been defeated type of deal. What is your instinct?
Yeah. Well, it's certainly harder to explain to people that it's a good idea, right? So man, it's so super bullish. But try to get anybody to explain, right? And be able to listen to it and do it is hard, right? Because and I saw this just today on Twitter, right? Somebody posted up, why would it, yeah, lock up all my HEX for 15 years for 2% APR. Wow, that's amazing, right? So yeah, it's hard, man. Now here's the thing: is of course anybody who already had the ladder, they've been collecting, they've been getting the high rates for a long time. So they're doing pretty good. I don't know if I froze or that was you, but they're doing pretty good if they already had been receiving rewards because they got this upsized reward that came in the past, right? New people that had just decided to come in, yeah, I feel them. And we're talking to people about getting 22% APR the first year with a Quattro Cinco, and now I don't even know what it is, 5% or something so small.
Yeah, 5 to 8, I would say, somewhere. I think last time we measured it.
Yeah. So yeah, I mean, it's pretty disappointing for them. So then, how do you convince somebody who's not in HEX? If you even wanted to, I'm not really in the business trying to convince them, just try to point out the information. But yeah, so basically you can lock up your HEX, and we don't know what will happen in the future. Just like the APR went down, it can go up. We don't know what's going to happen in the future. Just like people have emergency end staked in the past. You'll have emergency end stakes in the future. What does that look like? No promises, don't know. What it'll look like. So the proposition is, if you lock up, you can get upwards of that 5 or 6% on the longest, but the average probably somewhere around 4%, 3-4%. If you didn't,
I think the other side of that too is yeah, I mean, you get the yield, but the other promising thing to me, and again, maybe a lot of people use HSIs these days for the portability and remove this, but or at least make it play out differently, is helping yourself not sell it by staking it. I mean, just because you get the yield, but also I always love the truth engine. Like I thought that was one of the key features, and I want to save myself for myself type of thing. So even if the yield goes down and you need to stake longer and bigger to get the more percentage, and it forces you to think long term and really be more excited about that than getting short term rolling stakes and stuff like that. The fact that you can put it somewhere that is, again, a mutable smart contract, it's not some exchange to get your coin tacked, a place where you can put it and then kind of lock yourself in over time, get the yield, and again not be tempted to get rid of it so easily. I think that's a very underrated aspect of it that gets lost when yield go down. And again, like you said too, or maybe what we'll allude to at some point, and we talked about before, of okay, season of yield, maybe this season of price go up. I mean, we kind of it's in order for onboarding to go at exponential, we do need at some point price appreciation. I think that's probably what's on a lot of people's minds.
Well, yeah, of course. I mean, and that's really what we're hanging our hopes on, is price appreciation. But in the middle of all that, we talk about the APR, right? Remember, the OA is getting the lion's share of the payouts, right? And so for those who choose to go ahead and do staking, they have a great opportunity, because compared to you and me, player versus player, right? We can really clean up in terms of collecting any of the HEX that might be on the market, and available. So all the new inflation. So yes, the game rules changed, the units have changed, but in a situation where we have high price appreciation, which it kind of looks like that's what's going to happen. I mean, who's going to go sell their HEX right now? Some people will, right? But there's only, like, I think the last we looked, like 450 million on both chains each, like 450 million EHEX and 450 million PHEX up for sale. Hey, that's nothing. I mean, I can't go buy it, but I mean, in terms of the market, that's not a lot, man. And so, So it's become a situation where if you sell it down, right, based on liquidity, you're going to get tons of slippage. But you buy it up, you're going to get tons of slippage to the upside and just push the price up. And so the situation is set, and it may take, and this is the unfortunate part for most of us, right? It may take us a year, 2 years to begin to see the full effects of this, right? And who knows what will change between now and then. But overall, I'm super bullish, right, on what it means for the potential for HEX price.
I think the narrative here too, and maybe I hit Kong on this as well. Instead of yield go down, now what reason would I stake it? All that stuff. I think instead of framing like that, maybe a more interesting way too that is overlooked is the de-incentivization of selling is radically higher than it used to be in so many different ways based on these changes and again, the price being below what a lot of people bought it for and all that stuff too. What do you think, Con?
I was gonna say I always thought Hex was, especially Hex staking was always also about like making sure you're kind of diamond hands and you're holding, right? So like what Richard talked about with Bitcoin, and you could have sold after a million X, and then you miss the next like you miss the 10 million X or whatever, right? So that type of thing where it's keeping you from kind of dumping your future away as well. And I think even that ties into what we're talking about with now you're not as incentivized to dump your Hex. And then on top of that, if you are kind of staked for the long term, like you have like you've pretty much agreed, or you've agreed with the smart contract, agreed with yourself that you're going to stay diamond handed, and just if it plays out like Bitcoin, you will probably be rewarded in that sort of sense of mad gains, right? Even in terms of Hex, I always thought that the yield was kind of the cherry on top, and it was really going to be like the price appreciation of like the Hex, right? That really made like most of the difference, right? And then that's why staking was so helpful, was if or when the price moves up, right? Like not financial advice or anything like that, but if we do see like that huge parabolic uprise in Hex, like I think the stakers, especially after a long enough time frame, will probably be rewarded for holding. So
is that that's an interesting point. Is that the dirty little secret in Hex is nobody, really cares about the yield because they know the price is going to go up so much. Yield is just, the high yield was just a way to, get you to, oh, well, I might as well stake it to get even more type of deal, like the attracting you with honey type of deal. Like it wasn't everyone's, at the end of the day, of course, the ladders and all that stuff you're able to preserve T-shares, and all this stuff is what a lot of people want to do with their money because it makes sense. But the price appreciation at the end of the day, if everyone's complaining about yield, isn't it just like, hey, weren't you here for the price appreciation? And yeah, that hasn't came yet. But again, if you believe it's going to come, then what are you worried about type of deal?
Yeah, well, because it's crypto, and depending how you're situated, right? So I had the 180% opposite view as Kong, right? So everything that I've done has been based on yield first, rewards first, and price appreciation was the gravy.
Interesting. Is that so? Yeah, maybe elaborate on that too, because I feel like there is this two different ways of thinking in the ecosystem that's both can, they're almost complementary in a way, but they're very different.
Yeah, 100%. Dude. Yeah, well, the thinking was simple. For me, outside of crypto, right? Use the rule of 25 or the 4% withdrawal rate. If I'm trying to acquire enough assets to generate an income, you would take that income multiplied by 25, and that is how much capital you would need outside of crypto at a 4% rate. At a 12% rate, which is roughly kind of what a ladder would produce previously, you would need 3 times less, or well, not 3 times less, but 2/3 less of the capital to generate the same. And so for me, coming into crypto, into Hex, that was a great proposition, right? Because taking the same, whatever the current prices are, being able to come in from the outside and earn 12% is huge. Right?
But so for that to work though, you got to have had a lower bound of how far down it could go, while that's still worked out on the math side, right? So
Yeah,
there's this like
absolutely.
implicit price appreciation. It's not even price appreciation. I guess it's just like I don't know what the technical word is for it, but like you expect it not to go below a certain range for a certain period of time for the numbers to still work out. But if it goes above that, which you think it's going to do, then the gravy occurs.
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, and so you have that situation that's occurred because now it's changed, right? And so the rules change. So now we react to it, right? And we figure out what's going to work. But like I said, for anybody who's been in that's been accumulating at 20, 30% APR for 5 years, it doesn't take much in terms of appreciation for that to really pay off.
A question here from Mr. Chuck Crispy, and could be post Kong as well. If you'd like to jump in, Kong, any guesstimate of how high T-shares will cost in terms of HEX if just the short and long-term OA stakes are properly ended after serving 100% of their time?
Yeah, I'll just give you my quick one on
Crispy
this.
might have to take that one.
Yeah, well, Kong, I think you understand it enough anyways, but here's the thing. This is what's going to happen. We all would like initially think, oh, it's going to go up. It's not going to go up. Right. It may go up long-term, very long-term, like 15 years from now, we'll see the effects of it in that more HEX was minted and therefore the payouts are higher and therefore T-share rate goes up. But effectively what we've created, or what's been created, is a situation, and this is another bullish thing, is a situation where the T-share rate will continue to go up to the right, but it's going to go up into the right slower, not as much. Like the rate of increase has now been cut in half of the T-share rate. And you go, well, how can that be? How can that be? Well, there's more T-shares, and those T-shares are sucking up that reward. And so in the calculation, there's not as much of a reward to increase the T-share rate. So you just have to, you can go do the math, but believe me, this is true. And now, why is this bullish? Why do I say it's bullish? Well, we have 5 years, 5.5 years now almost, of staking that is not based on the current payout per T-share, based on the past payout per T-share plus whatever gets added along the way. So you have all these stakes baked in that earned all of these rewards at a much higher rate than anybody can get now. Right? Agree with that, I think, right? And so what does that mean? It means the T-share rate, even if it's going to go up slower, is still going to be going up at such a rate that new stakes coming out will not be changing the T-share rate. Here and there you might have one do it, if the timing is right. Otherwise, what's going to happen is, the T-share rate's going to go up a lot, and you're going to go into staking and be like, I remember the last time I did this, I got close to my T-shares, even if I went Quattro Cinco. And now it's going to be like, nope, not going to get it, And so for those who already have their T-shares, they're going to be, they're set. For people who have stakes that are coming out, if they do not re-up with what they have, they're just going to completely miss out over time.
Wow. Yeah, so that's an interesting point for the ecosystem too. Of, well, even if we have big new stakes, I guess maybe, what do you suspect that is in the OA's mind as far as like, why solidify? Why solidify this? Why make it unchangeable? Like, why is now the time to make such a change happen?
Well, it is changeable. It is changeable. Unlikely to be changed, but hey, we didn't expect the OA to stake everything either. So who knows, right? Anything could happen. I've said this before, maybe on your stream as well. The OA has rigged HEX for war, for battle, for sea. If you're a sailor, right? It's rigged, man. It is rigged tight. What does that mean to me? It means that nobody's coming in to mess with that supply. Nobody. You'd have to come in with so much value, it would be ridiculous. The price would go to the moon, Mars even, right? Because they can't come in. Somebody cannot come in and manipulate the system. So a whole number of things could happen, but it's rigged for battle, man. Meaning, you want emergency end stake? Go for it. Emergency end stake. Who gets the rewards? Well, right off the top, half goes to the OA. Where does the other half go? It goes to the stakers. Oh, wait a minute. The OA is like 80%, 90% of this. Well, I didn't do the numbers, but 75% of the staking T-shares. So the OA could virtually create a situation. I'm not saying that's going to happen, right? Because I don't want people to invest anything based on this. But a situation could happen where the OA could emerge the end stake. Who gets the the penalties? Mostly the OA. Who gets benefited? The small group of people that still have stakes. They got the HEX back. What if they decided they want to stake it again? They stake it again, right? They go to the next stake, merge the end stake, right? Again, replay. The only people who would be getting those rewards are the ones that stayed in the system.
That's an interesting Easter egg. That yeah, what if in the future merging stakes from these, and do you think that some people's minds are like, okay, if I think that's going to happen in the future, like that, is that a reason to stake these days? Of like
it's pure speculation. In fact, I yelled at Maddie last night on the stream a little bit about it because he kind of intoned that one of the reasons to stake is so you can get the emergency end stakes from the OA. And yes, that is something I'm thinking about. I want to be staked for that reason, but there is absolutely no hint that that's going to happen. Could it happen? Yes. And so then you're right back to what you're relying the litmus test, the IQ test got changed. It's a higher test now. Like you got to believe to stake. You got to really believe.
I mean, I think it makes sense as far as rewarding. You look at the narrative of rewarding believers over time. I mean, it does events either that or I mean, I guess that's about the only big piece that could happen once you stake. I mean, you can emergency end stake, or you can end your stake when it ends too. Is set up, I mean, just kind of a segue into the recent OA moves, and maybe you all could give an overview of that. But it looks like a ladder over multiple years, and there's got to be a question there of like, is that kind of these checkpoints? Are these kind of these like, hey, in a year, let's see what happens. Oh, at a right, it's like almost like if there's a right time to emergency end stake, if there's a right time to not do that, if there's a right time to restake, it kind of gives the OA options while also influencing the monetary supply.
Yeah, 100%. I think you're right. I mean, I just use an extreme example. But again, rigged to work. I mean, it's rigged up so that you can have an ever increasing APR over time, because what'll happen is APR will come up anyways, right? Because more HEX is being minted, so the APR comes up. So let's just assume the OA does what it had done in the past and doesn't do anything with the stakes. Those stakes would end year over year, and the T shares, well, they wouldn't end if the OA didn't end them, but if somebody could have counted them or ended them, then the payouts would go up.
What do you think, Colin? What do you think of this ladder, OA laddering? Who called that, by the way? Who called OA ladder? Anyone talk about that before?
I don't know who said it, but I mean, that OA always had a ladder of sorts out there, but I don't know who brought it up.
But not this big, right?
No.
I've always been kind of in the boat of like, I'm thinking Richard has some sort of like, I don't know if it's like vision or a plan or like I think he sees the vision for HEX, and I think and you can see it all across the chain. Like, I don't think he's like singling out HEX or anything like that. And then on top of that, this is like a little bit off topic, but he has like in the past like month and stuff, like a little bit before the Pulse conference and whatnot, he was tweeting a lot about HEX, right? So I think he's trying to kind of morph HEX into like a more mature crypto. Another thing I'll say about kind of yields and stuff is like when you're looking around at like some of the bigger projects on Ethereum, usually I would say like the yields are probably between maybe like 1, 2, 3 to like 10% in that sort of range for like a sustainable like kind of yield in that sort of sense. So I wonder if Richard's trying to like plug his yield into that same sort of range, because even if you take a look at the farms on, and I know we're talking about HEX, but if you take a look at the farms on incentive, like the yields are also within that range as well. Another thing another thing I think he's trying to do as well is even out the playing field in terms of how much economic energy you need to put in versus how much yields you can pull out. So, for example, like if incentives paying you, and I think people ran into this sort of like dilemma where if you have $100 or $1,000 or $10,000, it wouldn't be worth it to stake Hex for, let's say, 1 year because those yield farms were paying you a lot. Now that the yield farms aren't paying as much and like Hex isn't paying as much either. But I think what he's trying to do is kind of level the playing field of yield across chain. So all like, and this is kind of my speculation, is that so all of his products have like a similar or like similar or same sort of yield, and then this way you can let the market choose like kind of price appreciation as well, and it doesn't have to be like solely dictated on people trying to like extract value from the chain and stuff. And I think that's another thing too is I think he's trying to slow down value extractors as well, and people who are just using the systems primarily to extract value, and not like maybe if you're here sticking around for the long term or like 5555s, that's probably a lot better, like net positive for kind of everyone in Hex, rather than if you're doing like these massive like 30-day stakes, just peeling off the yield and then bridging it out of the chain is probably not a net positive for everybody. So
Was it to just stop the dumping? Like, I feel like is there a compelling case to be made that these monetary changes were being like, okay, we got to stop the dumping somehow. We can't go up unless we stop the dumping. Does that make sense?
Yeah, 100%.
I think that's what it is, right? Like you have to like. I think the sellers were in the way of going up, so that's of course, you know.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm just hoping another shoe doesn't drop for validation. I'm hoping I don't wake up one morning and see 10,000 new validators, 20,000, 50,000.
There's no place for yield.
No place for yield, no. And that's a big deal overall for the system. I mean, you essentially have a situation now where ink is becoming more rare, PulseX is becoming more rare, Pulse, to the extent that it's getting burned, is becoming more rare. Hex is more rare. I mean, what else you want? I mean, at some point there's a breaking point, right? Liquidity's low or lower, right? I mean, I was trying to do just simple swaps with Pulse, and you know, the type of slippage that I'm seeing is like incredibly high compared to the past, you know, and in my view, right? And so, yeah, I mean, we can really see this whole thing as being set up for success, you know.
Don't tempt us, Crispy. Don't tempt us for the Hexkins. You know, a lot of people in the PulseChain ecosystem, that not giving up thing, we take it pretty seriously. And
I know, man, I'm here with you.
Buying the dip. This meme had me cracking up the other day. Hey, please stop buying the dip. We're gonna deploy more capital. Steady, lads. We're gonna make sure this ship's going to the moon.
That's exactly how I feel, man. Who doesn't have a significant other that's like, so is this only a one-way door? I mean, you know, it's like that cartoon meme, right, where everybody's around the Thanksgiving, maybe it's the Thanksgiving dinner table, and they're calling the kid in the attic and saying, "Come down, tell us about your Hex, honey." Like, come on. It's like, I mean, you know, that's why it's so hard, right? Because you try to talk to people about it, you know, they're going to be like, you guys talking about prices are down, blah, 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 you know. But yeah,
that's kind of what I'd like to be in before the green candles, Crispy. I don't know about you, but I'd like to be in before the green.
Yeah, of course.
But you got to believe the green's coming. That's the hard part of being like, how do you explain something that is simple yet has so much history and complexity behind it that everybody's already done the work, but in order to understand it, you got to put in either hundreds of hours to objectively get it already, or you just have to find a reason to believe. That's the hard part.
Yeah, I oversimplify it to this. There's like a set of rules you need to understand when you come into crypto, and you just push the button and believe, right? Because otherwise you shouldn't be here, you know. And so crypto isn't for everybody, not right now. Would I like to be for everybody? Sure. But you know, you got to believe in things like you know, don't put more money in than you can afford to lose, right? You know, way too many people we've seen do that, right? You got to believe in things like not your keys, not your crypto, right? You got to believe in, you know, crypto in general, that it's got a future. It's going to go up into the right. You know, you have to believe in these things, because otherwise you get all hung up.
Yeah, avoid getting hung up for sure. A couple questions, and there's one other one I'll get to in a second too. But the vanilla hex, I don't totally understand the argument. You mean you have to continually stake longer and longer just to get the same yield as dumpers are getting less and less each stake? Whoever wants to take it.
You want to take that one, Con?
He's deploying capital right now, plugged in.
He's pushing buttons.
I'm reading the
pushing buttons.
Well, I mean, yeah, I think, and then maybe Crispy, you can even talk about this as well. But I think even the T share rate, as I understand, there's some shorter stakes going on, which I think you were saying it might not increase the share rate a whole lot, but I think it is going to make it a little bit more competitive to get T shares. And then, yeah, I think you do have to stake a lot longer now if you want to earn like that same however many tokens in terms of yield, right? And then I think that like Chad's saying as well, is like it's gonna slow down dumpers, right? If they need to make X amount of dollars and they were doing it before in 30 days, maybe it's gonna take 300 days now or whatever it is. So yeah, less dumpage and stuff like that. So
yeah, I concur. It's less about you vanilla staking longer to get more hex, and more about the different classes of hexagons who are out there, and the ones with the bigger bags. And so if they were able to effectively do 30-day rolling stakes and earn 8% on the 30-day stakes, they could just do that forever, always have more hex than us, always be able to sell the price down before you can get it. Now, how many of them are willing to do the same thing for 2%? That's what we're waiting to see. Right. And if they clear out, then it just makes it better for the longer term holders who are going to get higher rates.
Another one here from Big Boy Garms. Is the short staking was part of the system? Was it a glitch? Did it prove to be a fault in the system? What next? Yeah, how do you all think about that? About the short staking? Reading into this sounds like being able to get the yield, dump it type of deal, or otherwise. What do y'all think?
Yeah, I think for big players, like I don't think it was a glitch. But I definitely think it was something you like. If you were a bigger player, you could have taken advantage of in a sort of sense. So, yeah. But is it a glitch? I think it's like. I think it's what anyone would do, right? So, and I wonder if DeFi. Yeah, I wonder if even the OA is like I don't know if he planned to have that much supply in case of needing to do any like adjustments in terms of like the yields or something like that. But I think I even saw some clips circulating. I wonder if I'll be able to find them about how he's talking about how you can kind of adjust the yields depending on how much the OA stakes, if the OA ever stakes in the future or something like this. So, yeah.
Yeah, there was one interview that Richard did where he was asked about the APR, and he basically was saying, "Hey, it landed where it did, but if I had a do-over, it'd probably be half as much." Because he felt that the appreciation was much stronger than the yield, and so perhaps from his point of view, it didn't work out the way he wanted to. It wasn't a glitch because it works. The system works, right? And so now you've seen actions taken that corrected it.
Well, for Crispy, we're hinting at the HSI auctions being better than the perpetuals yesterday. I tried to find this tweet. Apparently, that was during a stream you did.
Yeah, it was with Maddie. I think it's not so much that HSIs are better than perpetuals. There's an opportunity right now on the PulseChain for people who want to purchase HSIs. There's a boatload of auctions that are available to be started. One T-share auctions, and in the past we've seen them go for both a premium in Hedron price and also at a discount. And now you combine that with the idea that we have this actuator protocol out there. You can, and this is like, I call this a hex super bond. If you haven't checked out actuator, you should go read the literature on it and read about it, where you can take an HSI and basically borrow hex against it. Or excuse me, it's not borrowing hex, but you're borrowing what they call an HTT against it. And the HTT is representative of one hex on a future date. And from that hex, you can then do whatever, or that HTT, you can do whatever you want with it. So you can actually earn additional yield on it, rewards on it. You can do a bunch of different things. It's like a bond. And they're selling at a discount right now, you know, so you can actually pick up a hex in about, for, I don't know, what is about 13 years out for a 70% discount. I'm going to be doing a stream and some work on that this week. You get that out there. All right. So anyways, that's the actuator and what I call hex super bonds. But the auctions themselves, opportunity. Now in perpetuals, I haven't checked the maxi recently, but I knew it was running a little bit at a premium over hex. But DESI's been running almost always at a discount, which is kind of crazy because each DESI is worth 1.4 hex when that stake ends. Right now it's worth that, and who knows where it might go.
Got a question here from Yaveen. I like to think the OA is setting up a 5-year or so cycle where you can adjust yield for the purpose of something. It's fun to watch what happens. You know, is there something being set up by these moves, you all think? Other than price go up, hopefully.
Yeah, I wouldn't be surprised if one day, someday the yields change, and even if it happens to be like you could imagine, there's some massive price appreciation, and then maybe yields start to ramp up a little bit to kind of entice more people to come in and stuff, and like you can talk about like, oh yeah, look at the yields and the price has gone up this much as well. But I think that's a little bit of speculation. I don't know if he's going to just like set it and forget it type of thing, and I think some of it will be like set it and forget it, or if he's going to kind of, I'm saying he or the OA or whoever is going to sort of manage it and have like a more of a dynamic sort of yields out of hex and stuff. So, and I think that's another good point is like if there is more of a dynamic yield that comes out of hex from this, is if you're able to, even what you're talking about, like back in the day, I think I was able to get some good HSIs on a good discount and stuff. And like, if you're able to pick up like cheap hex on a 70% discount from market price, that's pretty outstanding, right? Especially that you don't know if the yields will pick up or not. Like you know, maybe this is the floor and you know where, like maybe where it could go. But I think even with the yields we have now over compounded over 15 years, plus all the emergency end stakes, plus those HSIs are typically maybe 1 or 2 years old, maybe even older than that. Maybe some of them are 3 years old, right? So they've already accumulated a lot of hex in there. Like technically those HSIs should be kind of worth more in this sort of sense than like if you were to stake hex today, because they've already accumulated so many rewards plus a cheaper share rate. So
yeah, it's crazy. It's a good opportunity. I think when you talk about the OA, don't expect to see emotional, like real quick motions by the OA, but when the OA decides to do something, then as we've seen, it's like a waterfall, right? All these things will just happen pretty quickly. Is the OA done? I don't know. But you know, other than the fact that I'm butthurt over the idea that APR is so low, you know, and it's changed, right? Other than that, let's take a step back. So APRs were high. I'm the OA, right? And the APRs are high. People are fading hex staking. So if they don't want to stake, all right, let's go with it. Let's shut down staking to the extent that the price will go up, because that's the balance, right? And so that's what we've seen. And if for some reason the OA decides for the needs of the you know the community or hex that APRs need to go up, they can start emergency end staking.
Wow.
yeah, I think at the end of the day, as well as like the true believers will will probably be rewarded the most, right? Out of anybody.
100%, man.
So
It's a, well, listen, that's always been the dirty secret that people really get pissed off about, right? Because anybody who had been a true believer throughout is probably watching this going, what are you guys talking about? I don't have any of these problems. You know, I got my hex real early. I held on to it. I kept restaking, blah, blah, blah. They got all this stuff and they've been just stacking the hex, and now they're poised for like a super cycle in hex price. What it might go up to. And so for them, it's fantastic, right? And I have this concept of a closed garden, right? Where, maybe for a period of time, maybe forever, hex staking is only for me and the people who listen to me and you guys, right? Maybe it's only us true believers that really will ever do hex staking again, because the other people are meeting their needs, right? Trading, speculating, playing cycles. And so that just means that the benefit that I get becomes even greater over time without doing those things.
I mean, staking, it's one of the big draws to Hex was you don't need to trade. You don't need to spend all the time at the terminal clicking back and forth, probably losing money unless you're really, really good at it. Taking other people's money, like some of the other games like that. You can go out in the real world and be a productive person, and not have to do crypto full time. And again, a lot of people doesn't always work out for. So Hex solves that. Question or comment from Yavin as well, which kind of leads into another question that I think is interesting. If Hex hit $1, like let's say they're massive price appreciation, $1, $2, $5, whatever. What does that change? Have you all thought about what that changes in the ecosystem, other than sentiment go up, other than community go up, onboarding go up, but at a technical level for the Hex protocol, higher prices, does that what are we looking at if we're looking at dollar Hex one day, or again all $2, $5, whatever your target is? Does it make the OA more powerful? Like what dynamics does it change in the system? That the share rate, all those things. What happens?
Well, I think it definitely makes the OA more powerful. Just because of the dollar value, right, and the difference. I don't even know what the price comes up to today. What is 10,000 hex, right? Is what 0.007 last time I looked for hex. That's $70 for 10,000 hex, right? Right now, most people that are watching this, if you needed to go spend $70, you're not going to really have a big problem with that, right? $10,000 is a whole different story, right? And so as that price goes up, the amount of units that people will be sloshing back and forth that are in the the 80% of the non sharks and whales, right? All of a sudden, this is big money, which will only lead to it being even more difficult for T shares to be created and new supply to be created by the regular Joes and Jills out there, right? So I think it's a pretty awesome situation, really.
Kong, you have something on that?
Not anything too deep, but I was gonna say, just in terms of the yields and stuff, Richard's probably thinking ahead of and I don't know, if you're the founder of a project, you're probably paying attention to different things than if you're just a retail investor, in the sense that you're probably watching closely to what these bigger players are doing, especially when big players enter your system. You can imagine if you're a crypto founder, you'd probably be interested in what are they doing, what are their strategies, what are they trying to game from the system or whatever, and then taking a look at that type of thing. But I wonder if even at the top of the market, or going up to the top of the market, and even on the way up too, right? If he kind of noticed some things, was paying attention, and is kind of adjusting everything now. So for next run up, we have sort of maybe more of a maybe more of like a clear path or something like that. I don't know. I don't know what the right way of kind of describing that would be, but yeah. I think he, like, even we were kind of talking. I think he kind of learned, maybe not from his mistakes, but from ways he could probably even capture or keep a little more value in the system and stuff. Especially like we're talking about, if people want yields, they're gonna have to stake longer now, right? Which ideally keeps them in the community, keeps them in the ecosystem, keeps them in the kind of paying attention to everything a little bit more. But yeah.
Sure. Mr. Chuck, last question, and we'll move on before we wrap up here in a few minutes too, because I know we got some, who knows, we may get some alpha dropped as well. What is the minimum number of T shares after bigger, longer pays better bonuses you'd recommend for a short or long-term stake? Aim at least for 0.5 share per stake or more. Guys got anything on that?
What is
Sorry,
the minimum
I
amount of
missed.
T shares?
Yeah, I missed that question. I'm sorry.
That's all right. What the minimum number of T shares you'd recommend for a short or long-term stake?
That's a really good question.
That's a hard one, you know, because I would say more is better, and so that's really helpful, right? And I know that everybody's in a different situation, but I would try to accumulate greater than 50,000 for sure, but I'd probably be shooting for 100,000. And short ones maybe not so bad, because you'll know what the gas is right now. But primarily the reason I say that, I don't talk about HEX versus T-shares, I know. But the idea is at some point, you know, we'll see days where it's going to be super expensive to emergency end stake. Now we're already seeing, or not emergency end stake, but the end stake, we're already seeing gas prices on certain days being higher than Ethereum. You know, so will that continue? I don't know. But one of the ways you can mitigate that, of course, is by holding additional pulse set aside for that purpose, or to go with a bigger amount of hex so that you don't get hurt as badly by a high gas price. But yeah, anyways, prior to all this, I think DCC, Dollar Cost Crypto, had been talking at one point about trying to shoot for 100,000 hex. But for some people, that's a lot of money, man. You know, so that might not be doable.
I will say as well, as I do think it will depend on your bag, right? So I think the bigger your bag is, potentially the like, you don't have to go as long in your length, right? And I think on top of that, like, you also have to keep in mind, if you stake a little amount of hex for relatively speaking a long amount of time, you might actually outperform staking a like medium sized bag of hex for a shorter amount of time, in terms of like the amount of tokens you'll end off with, like, at the end of the day. Because those 5555s, like, even with the lower yields, they'll be extremely powerful, right? Even not including any of the early unstake bonuses, right? You'll compounding for 15 years versus even compounding for 10 years, you're going to have a large difference in that last like 5 years or so. It's going to make an exponential amount of difference. So that's kind of why I say is that, like, even staking a shorter bag size for longer, and then just making sure you have enough for the fees on Ethereum or even the fees on PulseChain into the future, just making sure you have enough pulse there for gas fees. And then I think and like we're talking about, I think you can't really go wrong, especially if kind of what me and Crispy Man are talking about, because he said we kind of had like different ideas in the sense that, like, he's trying to capture more price appreciation, and then I'm also trying to just capture like the kind of the ability of like diamond hands, right? And just doing like holding the crypto for as long as you say you're going to hold it. But I think doing a 5555, it encapsulates both in terms of earning the most amount of yield in kind of that max compounded time frame, and then on top of that, you're also kind of preventing yourself from selling in that sort of sense. And then you can look at the yield like a cherry on top, or you can look at it like you kind of absorbed a ton of the hex yield going into the system over 15 years, right? So yeah, there's a ton of ways you could look at it. But I do think doing a smaller amount for longer is probably better than doing like a medium sized amount for shorter. But yeah, not financial advice or anything like that. So
Yeah, it's so hard. It's up to each individual, and that's where the derivatives come in too, right? Like you could go get PDI or Maxi and have exposure to HEX. Go get actuator HTTs and have exposure to HEX. So even though I'm primarily always talking about native staking, I recognize that those opportunities are out there as well.
I just did a quick math here on we're talking about the amount of HEX and T-shares and all that stuff too. The PX side, 1 million HEX over 2008, was that like 6 years or so? Just dropped to zero off the price if you believe it's going to go up a 10x in the next 6 years or so. In that way, 50 T-shares. Yeah, it's drop to zero off of this 100,000 HEX. 5 T-shares. So yeah, 100,000 HEX, 2,000 days, 5 T-shares, and boy, just dropping 1-0 looks pretty good as far as money goes. As far as that goes, what if we drop another 0? What if we start talking about dollars in HEX? That'd be pretty good. But yeah, getting those T-shares. That is, what do we say now? My first instinct is getting those T-shares get you paid is a way to get paid in HEX terms long term. Do you still? How do you sell to people now? Do you say getting those T-shares lets you preserve your yield, preserve your potentially emergency in-stake payouts, maybe preserves your payouts. Maybe that's catchy. Is that catchy? Preserve your payouts, long-term staking. What do you guys think? How do we sell to? Talk about this a little bit in the beginning, but like, is that other than price appreciation and not selling? Yeah, preserve your payouts, preserve your what do you think? T-shares.
Well, I think in the game of HEX, which is to accumulate as much HEX at whatever your end game is, the only way you can get get fresh HEX is by staking, right? So that's the only way that you can get it. And so in a situation, if you can imagine a situation where the HEX price continues to go up, which I think it will over time, and less being available on the market, at the same time, the only way to get it would be to at least be exposed to staking, right?
All right, coming up on time. Power Hour. Are you not entertained, everyone? Not entertained. I know the ecosystem's been up and down. Liquidity has been down a lot too. Gentlemen, what do you want to take us out on as far as next few minutes? What is the best chart? What is the best stat? What is the best rocket ship fuel we can chat about for a few minutes?
I think what I was gonna say is that like now, if you wanted to onboard someone or anything like that, like I think now is a great time, especially if people can see the price charts, and especially if they're kind of more have an investor's mindset of like, instead of, oh no, everything's down, let me stay away from this because it's down. If they're more open to kind of getting in now that it's down, I think now is kind of like that point, or maybe, and then like over the next however long, to kind of get your DCAs in on the ecosystem. Because even on some of the core coins like PLS, right, you're getting another kind of opportunity here to buy below even kind of the previous lows we've had. So especially if you still have like cash coming in, things like this, like you're able to pick up the lows on these prices and onboard people at ideally a good time, right? Because I think if they're buying the top of whatever and then it just goes down from there, like it's not the best experience, right? It's harder to get in. But if they're able to kind of pick up at the lows and they see things kind of doing well, it's a lot more enticing, right? So
does the lower yield percentage, it's actually, funny enough, work in our favor? As far as, one of the biggest criticisms of HEX was, oh, it's 38% APY, it sounds like a scam. With something that is more than what your bank can give you, for example, even if it's 5 or 8% or 2% or whatever it is, it's more than a lot of traditional products can give you. Does that actually work in our favor with people who are looking at it and thinking, oh wow, this isn't like some product that's just going to fail, or some scam, or some something that can't possibly, do what it says it's going to do because they aren't turned off by that initial effect that may have been turned off before. I feel like I've heard that criticism so much, but is that gone away now? And hopefully for in a good way.
I don't think it's gone away because you still have people. I mean, I don't know if you were already looking at crypto, you're already kind of willing to believe that, there's some incredible possible gains. And so even like Bob Sled saying in the chat, right, the 2% is not super enticing. But but let's just say we do an average of a ladder and say 5% if I was selling it and trying to explain to people why. So invest, in what's a good number? Invest $1,000, right? And hey guys, every year you're going to get $50, right? I mean, essentially is what we're saying, like something like that, $50 worth of rewards. But now 10x that or 100x that, instead of 50, it's 5,000 a year. Now that's a big mover, right? And so, but here's the thing is you won't be able to do that when the price is 100x. You can only do it now if you can get the units cheap. So if you get the units cheap now at the less than a penny, and you experience the 100x, then you can experience, getting these very high ROIs based on your start price, your average buy-in price. And the thing is just like T shows before, you're not going to be able to go back in time, at least at that moment, and get the HEX for a lower price. So, yeah, I mean, I think that's going to be the selling point for it.
Liquidity situation. How much I keep seeing less and less HEX available on the market for some reason. I keep seeing people talk about that. Yeah, what is any bullish pieces you all want to leave us with before we wrap up?
Well, I would just say this. I mean, I'm seeing that people don't want to sell. The ones that do, but people don't want to sell. And we took out a ton of exposure for LP with HEX, right? The impermanent loss kind of sucks with HEX, right? So as an LP provider, I don't want to take impermanent loss. Sometimes it goes the other way and it's positive. So the pulling of, or the bringing down of the ink rewards on the farm really shut down that. I mean, how many millions of HEX were just pulled out of those farms, right? So yeah. Oh, I think it's going to keep going down. Maybe some big giant whale is going to go, I really don't believe in any of this anymore. And they're going to put it all up into LP. But they haven't. And until they do, you're just going to see that quantity dwindle down, because we can see on the charts that people are accumulating HEX into different wallets, whether that's groups of people, a group, the OA, whoever's doing it, that's what's happening.
Well, maybe are they not doing it because they think the price is going to go up, perhaps?
Of course. Yeah. I mean, that's a speculation, right? So if you take out the whole HEX walled garden and move it over to the right and don't even think about it. So what's the proposition on HEX? Well, there's speculation that, PulseChain is going to pump. The favorite child is HEX. So HEX is going to really pump. What are you going to do? I'm going to buy HEX and hold it and try to sell it at the top. Right, that's what people are thinking.
I think for me as well, in terms of like a sort of selling point for HEX is like, I would do, I don't know, a little bit more explaining in the sense of like, even if we look at everything we have now in terms of PulseChain, I think it kind of derives to HEX in the sense that like, I think the ETH guys weren't so nice, especially with the fees that were happening on Ethereum. And I think Richard could even see like how much fees were going to all the Ethereum guys. And now we have pretty much an entire blockchain almost like built around the product, right? And then on top of that, when you're looking like in terms of like a selling point for staking, like if you're looking at it like Bitcoin, to me it's like one of those things where you put in, you don't have to like we talked about, you don't put in more than you can afford to lose. You put in a little bit of money, you wait 5555 or however long you want, and you just see what happens, right? And if it plays out like Bitcoin, right, you will have thanked yourself that you will have held the entire time, right, for that entire run up, instead of just selling on a double and then calling it a day, right? So Yeah, but that's kind of little. I don't know. I don't know if that's like too technical or something. But that's what I would say if I was trying to like kind of bring someone on to HEX and stuff. So
I definitely hope our future selves think our past selves and present selves.
Yeah, you definitely have to believe in price appreciation.
I believe it.
I believe it too, man. I was there. I saw it. I saw it happen.
Heat check real quick. We all believe it, right?
Crispy Man witnessed it with his own eyes, guys. Like
With my own eyes.
I've seen the HEX price go up. It's been a while, but I've seen it go up pretty hard too. Yeah.
Not even just HEX, man. We've seen tons of different tokens, right?
Cryptocurrency can do a lot of X's. Is that what I'm hearing?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
a lot of X's is possible. It's possible.
Yep. It is.
Right,
people got to have a plan. Part of that plan can be a staking ladder. It definitely should be for HEX.
Everybody's got a plan until they get punched in the face. That's what a famous boxer said. But at least with this, we get punched in the face. At least the HEX protocol it's unpunchable. It can't be punched. It is unchanged during this entire time, regardless of your emotions or the price chart. So how about that? I'm going to stick with that. My nerd comment.
Okay.
All right, gents. Killed it again today. HEX Power Hour. Are you not entertained, Hexicans? Hopefully you're doing okay out there. Ecosystem's doing its thing. It's doing a thing. But
the power of HEX.
The power of hanging
HEX.
on for dear life. Huddling is powerful concept. Crispy, where can people find more about you and your awesome content?
You just check me out at hexfire.io.
I like it. I like that name. Hexfire.io at hexfire.io on YouTube and the Twitters, the Xverse. What about you, CryptoCon?
Thank you.
Oh, of course.
Yeah, you can find me at CryptoKong145 on Twitter and YouTube or X or whatever you want to call it. And then you can also find like more of like my website and stuff is like lookintopdgc.com, and that's like kind of a stats page with for the greatest currencies. So just taking a look at some of the top performing meme coin, or I don't know if meme coin's the right word, but let's say altcoins on PulseChain. So
it sure is, man. It's one of the UFO and PTGC are one of the top 10.
You said PTGC. I was thinking anytime I hear like crypto.
Yeah, the two of them are top in the top my top 10 list for crypto on PulseChain.
Yeah. So yeah, I definitely recommend checking it out. There's lots of cool stats. I think today was a cool day for like that kind of ecosystem. Like there was a ton of volume and stuff, and those tokens kind of thrive on volume, right? So even when we have all these like kind of prices being thrashed around and all this volatility, like that's kind of what these tokens like thrive on. So I think it's pretty cool just taking a look at the stats and stuff. So yeah, guys.
Whenever I hear the full enunciation of P, TGC or P, like 3 or 4 characters afterwards. Have you all seen that Somi video where they dubbed over Michael Saylor? And it's got Somi saying, he'll be like, the sound is money on earth. And it'd be like, have the clip of Somi saying PWBTC. And it'd be like, take your house and sell it to get more PWBTC. Like somebody dubbed over made that video. It was pretty funny. So anyways, when I hear the full enunciation, I think of like PWBTC, somebody saying it like in that very precise way of not like messing up the characters either, because there's so many different pieces.
Yeah, I think PTGC, it is like it's I don't know if it's tricky to say, but it's like I think a lot of people like they get mixed up with it and stuff. So
pushing the limits of the English language right now, and
we are right now. So
well, at least it doesn't have a W. The 5-character one, that's a little. There's a lot with P's and W's and stuff too. Anyways, everyone, that's all I got for you today. That's all we got for you today. Fast Doodles, in it for the tech. Heard Ink Money Printer launched as well, and a lot of ecosystem projects already launched, popping off this year. Hopefully, we'll see some more from PulseChain devs. No expectations. Yeah, if hopefully now all the core coins have loan abilities, as far as I'm aware. Who's going to make one for most? If you include that, that'll be interesting. Who knows? But that's all we got for you today. Scivive and 5555. We are out.